as a vivid memory of me in elementary school and middle school because it was so odd. Now it's so not odd that they're just banning it. They're just saying this is not even a safe thing. We're not even going to run the risk. Why? Why? How could that happen? There's also other things today that just registered to me as very odd. One thing being that people are just struggling to have children. There are so many people that have fertility issues. And again, I'm not connecting this dot and saying that this is definitely from vaccines or it's definitely not. But it's something that's weird. Our grandparents had 9, 10, 11, 12. Quite literally, my grandfather was one of 12. And these people were certainly not getting vaccines. And you look today, and people are struggling to have one child. They're having to turn to IVF. They're having to turn to more science, and they just can't figure out why. And I think that there are tons of things that we should be discussing. And one thing that is unique is this explosion of vaccination that have been taking place.
Again, it's bullshit. It's real education, but it's good. Fuck it, them commercials.
If you're like most Americans, you're struggling to make ends meet. Everything is more expensive these days. By the time you pay the bill, fill up your car, go grocery shopping, there's almost nothing left. You're laying out your credit card for all non-essentials, or maybe even some essentials. Last I checked, the average credit card interest rate for Americans is sitting at 24%. That is insane. How are you supposed to dig yourself out of all that debt? If you own a home, I want you to call my friends at American Financing right now. Interest rates have finally dropped into the price, which is the lowest they've been in a long time. So call American Financing to talk about their refinance options. They save their customers on average $854 a month by tapping into their home equity and wiping out high-interest credit card debt. Think about it. $854 a month is like a $10,000 raise.
Just know, talking about fucking commercial. Hey, she come with another commercial.
These rates might
She
not
come with another commercial.
Call American Financing at 800-795-1210. And if you call today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payments. That's 800-795-1210 or visit AmericanFinancing.net.
NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 start at 6.799%.
I just got two commercials in one. One commercial on the same thing with the damn.
And terms.
I also want to just attack initially the official narrative, rather, that vaccines make us healthier, right? That is kind of the narrative. Vaccines make us healthier. You should get more and more and more. And every time there's a vaccine that becomes available, you should roll up your sleeve and you should get the shot. Something that you should know is that the United States, of every country in the entire world, administers the most vaccines. Okay? The United States administers the most vaccines. So if you follow that logic, then we should find that children in the United States are the healthiest, right? I want you to take a look at this chart. This chart, just to explain it to you, it's the OECD chart. The OECD stands for the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. It's a unique forum where the governments of 37 democracies, this is according to Google, with market-based economies collaborate to develop policy standards to promote sustainable economic growth. So the idea is like these are other governments that are just like us, that we can compare ourselves to. So when you say that you're making an OECD comparison, that means that you're looking at other countries that have a similar structure or that have similar access to medicine as we would have that are affirmative groups. So take a look at this chart of OECD countries. And what this chart is comparing are infant mortality rates amongst these countries. And you can see when you look at the bottom that for infant mortality rates, the United States ranks number 36. Behind countries like Croatia, Latvia, Hungary, Belgium, Austria, Greece, Israel, Korea, Spain, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Japan, Finland, Norway, Estonia, all countries which use way less vaccines than us. And it tells you at the top that the infant mortality rate is defined as the number of deaths of children under 1 year of age expressed per every 1,000 live births. Now, what's really interesting about this chart to me is that, just so you know, the United States gives the most money to all of this bureaucracy. And so they feel the need to qualify this. If you keep reading on, it says, Some of the international variation in infant mortality rates is due to variations among countries in registering practices for premature infants. The United States and Canada are two countries which register a much higher proportion of babies weighing less than 500 grams, with low odds of survival, resulting in higher reported infant mortality. I looked into this, and this is absolute BS. I could find only two countries
bullshit.
where they were weighing the metric in a different way that would have impacted this. So I encourage you to look even deeper into this. But the idea that they even need to qualify this signals to me that they don't want people looking deeper into this. So like, oh, it is kind of weird. The United States is not number one here, but don't pay attention to this because the United States is kind of controlling the obesity data, and we want you to know that it's not a big deal that our infants are registered 36 behind all of these countries. So I'm going to put all of this information up, guys. I want you to be able to access it and to assess it yourself. And you can go through each and every one of these countries and determine how they register live births. Something that Big Pharma is banking on you not having the time to do. Make the time. It is very telling that America is ranked so lowly in terms of health and in terms of infant mortality. All right, so now I want to jump into my personal story. I call this my personal shot in the dark because it is what has set me on this path. It is something that when it happened to me, it was why, God, why? And now I see it is because I've been given this platform to share the story and to inspire a lot of women to share their stories. I've actually never seen more women respond than when I talk about the Gardasil shot, which is one of the vaccines that was administered to me when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and the vaccine that I was injured from. This was my big wake-up call. So I'll give you the background story. Again, I was 19 or 20 years old when there suddenly was this really big push for women to get the Gardasil vaccine, which was a 3-part series. And I'm going to show you an old commercial from that time because the message that was being delivered was that if you wanted to avoid getting cancer, you would get this vaccine. Like one way that you could mark yourself safe from cervical cancer was to get the Gardasil vaccine. Here is
Dumbass.
commercial from back then.
Here in the U.S., thousands of women learn they have cervical cancer. I could be one less.
Well, I remember that old funk ass commercial.
The target vehicle is
I
of
remember that
considerable
funk ass
caliber,
commercial.
so I
I
wouldn't
remember that shit.
underestimate the group's will to protect it.
That right here. Yeah, I remember that stank ass commercial. And then they go two more commercials on in one. But you already know me. I ain't trying to see no fucking commercial. Period. Bam. Finish Candace.
One less statistic. One less. Because now there's Gardasil, the only vaccine that may help protect you from 4 types of human papillomavirus that may cause 70% of cervical cancer.
So I saw these commercials, obviously, like every other young woman, and I fully trusted my doctors just like every other young woman, and I went to my gynecologist and for my annual exam, and he said there's a new vaccine, you absolutely have to get it. And he said, what is it? He said, Gardasil, it's good, it's going to prevent you from getting cancer down the line. And now that I'm older, what a strange thing. We don't have a cure to cancer. Why would I believe that we have something that can just fully stop
Dumbass, because you stupid.
cancer?
You stupid.
I have so many red flags, but at the time I was young and I was dumb. And just so you guys know, the Gardasil shot was approved back in 2006. So again, I think I was about 19 years old when this happened. So anyways, I rolled up my sleeve to get the first shot, and immediately after he administered it, I hit the ground and I passed out, which I never passed out. I am not a person that faints. I am not a person that is queasy. So this was very out of the norm for me personally. And when I came to, what he essentially said to me was, "Did you eat breakfast this morning?" And I said, "No, I didn't eat breakfast." So that's why you passed out. It's okay. Not a big deal, but you should make sure before you get the second shot, you eat breakfast. So I was a little spooked. They sat me down, gave me some water. I left thereafter, but he had given me what I assumed was a valid reason for this happening. Obviously, eating breakfast this morning. But my second shot, I was way short I ate breakfast that morning. I sat down, I just thought there was no possibility that I was going to pass out. The nurse came out, she gave me the injection, and this time the injection was much more severe. Not only did I pass out, and I remember this moment especially perfectly because she had asked me to disrobe because afterwards I was going to have an exam. So I was essentially just wearing a shirt and one of those little pieces of paper, to cover your parts. And I passed out the chair, the table. When I came to, I began having what can be described as a mini seizure. I began shaking and I began vomiting profusely. The two gynecologists came flying down the hallway. I had the nurse there. They were all over me trying to take care of me. And I just, even as I'm recapping this too, I just remember how absolutely traumatized and scared I was, not knowing what was happening to my body, not knowing why I was vomiting, not knowing why I was shaking. I've never had these things happen to me ever before in my life. And it was very obvious that my gynecologists were spooked. And when they got me up and got me into the chair, and you can imagine how horrifying this is, this happened to have been two male gynecologists this particular hour, completely naked, having a seizure, completely naked, having a seizure. And he said to me right away, you should discontinue the series. You should not get pregnant. This is a reaction that you should not be having to this. I remember just crying hysterically. I was just so scared, when something happens to you medically that's never happened to you medically, it's like an out-of-body experience. And I was traumatized leaving the office. They obviously wouldn't themselves, but gave me water, kept me on for a long time, asked me if I was okay, so I had to smile and left. The residual I guess the residual drama that took place, I didn't feel like myself for years after getting that second installment at the Gardasil shop. I had a fatigue that I can't even describe to you that lasted for years. I felt like my brain didn't work the same since getting that vaccine. I know that I have shared this story before, and so many women have written into me. This really seems to be the one vaccine that so many women had reaction to. It's stunning to me that it's still on the market. I've had people say that they were very shortly thereafter diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, all sorts of stories. You obviously see that today. People that were similarly impacted by this vaccine, people that similarly had seizures after getting this vaccine, with very severe warnings. You can imagine me going through this process really alone and crying as I was sitting in my car about to drive home and asking myself, what did I just put into my body? Actually, more to the point question was why did I just put this into my body?
Thank you.
I don't even know what it was that I just put into my body, and I don't know why I put it into my body. Why did I just blanket trust the doctor? I passed out the first time. That should have been the first hello, Candace, maybe not for you.
Don't
And
worry.
I had what amounted for a mini seizure in an office. And I'm sitting here, I realize I don't know what maybe this is my doctor. I don't even know what it was that I was reacting to. And I began to conduct some research on what I discovered as a mystery, and I think it is going to as a mystery as well. So as I said, the Gardasil vaccine was approved back in 2006. So what I want you to pay attention to is 2005, right? What led us to this moment of them suddenly saying that we need to do this push and we need to make people fearful to get this vaccine? And what better way to make people fearful than to use the word cancer? Cancer is something that terrifies us all. We all think about cancer. We see commercials of people that have cancer. We know people that suffer from cancer. We know how horrific cancer is. And if you use a term, if you use a phrase like this is going to prevent you from getting cancer, you are obviously going to inspire people to act out of fear. So I want to take a look for you. I want you guys to take a look rather with me at what the cervical cancer rates were in 2005 in the United States before they rolled out the Gardasil. So first, it's important to note that the female population in the United States in 2005 was 149.9 million. Okay, so approximately 149.9 million females are living in the United States. Of the 149.9 million females in the United States, there were just 10,370 cases of cervical cancer, okay, before the rollout of Gardasil. So I've done the math for you. You can fact check this math for you. That means if you were a female in the United States in 2005, you have just a 0.0069% chance of being diagnosed with cervical cancer before they rolled out this preventative vaccine. So you are seeing, by the way, the chart that we are sharing. This chart can be found on a the American Cancer Society's website. Again, you're not going to be initiating sources for the amount of cases of cervical cancer, which that is now before they ever heard this vaccine. Now, they essentially decided, Big Pharma all by itself, that this vaccine is so successful that they have now not just said it's for women, it's not for men. So if you're watching this now, you're like, what are you talking about, guys? What do you mean just for women with cervical cancer? Men are getting this vaccine too. Yeah, eventually they decided to extend it to men, which is confusing to me because, again, that big push we just saw in the commercial was all about women preventing themselves from cervical cancer. So how did they magically realize this formula was also going to help men if a man does not have a cervix? It's very confusing to me. It doesn't matter. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. So just trust them. So what they say to men is that this could prevent you from getting penile cancer, which is just not even on the map of cancers. Right? Again, I will get into that later.
Wow.
Just know they've now extended this to men. So that must mean that it was such a astounding success for the female population. They said, men, you should get this as well. So
What miracle did you want me to perform?
The Gardasil shot was for females. So these numbers are from 2022. In 2022, there were 167.5 million females living in the United States. Okay. Of the 167.5 million females in the United States, there were 14,100 cases of cervical cancer. Now, the math on that means that if you are a female in the United States, and this is after almost 20 years of having, almost 2 decades of having this wonderful vaccine to prevent from cervical cancer, your chances of getting cervical cancer today are 0.0084%. That's weird because that means that cervical cancer rates have gone slightly up in the United States since the rollout of the Gardasil vaccine. How does that make sense? By what metric are they determining that this Gardasil vaccine, which has injured so many women, myself included, should not be discontinued and rather should be extended to the entire male population? If you think that's shady that they've extended it to the male population because now they've decided they can help with penile cancer and all sorts of cancers, then you're going to find it even stranger that they're now mandating the shots. The HPV shot, they are mandating it in Rhode Island, in DC, in Puerto Rico, in Virginia.
Getaway car secured.
By the way,
Well done.
Virginia, it's for girls only, and parents can only opt out if they have a religious or a moral belief against it. But in New York, this is where it gets
That's more money. That's more money for the
they
industry.
attempted to pass a bill in 2019 to require that all children have to have the Gardasil vaccine to enter any school, including daycare.
Wow.
To say that that infuriates me would be the greatest understatement because of how I suffered that vaccine. When you are injured from a vaccine and then you learn that they are trying to give this vaccine to toddlers.
Independence. With that